Whoa, buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide.
Just don't.
At MichaelDukesShow.com, go and the podcast and to the social media sites that we simulcast to every morning, including Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Also, you'll find links or lists of all the radio stations and or translators that we broadcast across the state of Alaska on. So if you're wondering, if you're in a community and you're hearing this on the stream and you're like, I'd like to listen to that on the radio, pure old terrestrial radio. Well, you could just go over there and do it. It's all the links are there and everything else. And of course, contacts and whatever else you'd like to find out there. Feel free to go jump in and do it to it. Welcome to the program for this beautiful Thursday. I was expecting it to be, they've been threatening it's going to rain. And so still a little cool, still a little dark, but no real rain yet here in the South Central area. I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure they said it's going to be a biggin. They said it's going to be there's a big thing coming in. So we're going to be talking about that and watching out for that, I guess, not talking about it, but watching out for that here in the next day or so. But welcome to the program, and thank you for coming on board. Today is Thursday, and we've got to see we got to see what's going on. We have no guests today, so it's going to be you and me. I was working on some guests, and it just didn't. It's kind of that slump before the storm. We just had the primary. And now people are, I've talked to several candidates who are like, that they and their spouses were going out and, taking a little bit of time off. They were going to see the family. They were getting things ready for winter. They were doing, all these different things that they were, getting ready to do before they were going to have to knuckle down and head on into the straight, so to speak. Of the electoral season, which is coming up with the big November elections happening. What is it now? 8 weeks away? I guess we're 8 weeks away. 8 weeks away or so from the big election. As many people would say, the most important election of our lifetimes. We'll see. Depending on which side you're on. I mean, I've heard both sides say it, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I know that, that regardless of what happens, I'd like to offer you just a smidge of hope that the day after election, no matter who wins or who you vote for, either one, you'll still be here and we'll make it through. I'm not saying that it would be better or worse with certain candidates, I'm just saying that we will still be here and we will still be making it happen. We'll still be fighting the fight. We'll still be doing what we can. So I don't want quite the doom and gloom that a lot of people are talking about. We're gonna make it through. We are going to make it through. And remember to, take time to stop and smell the roses, or whatever it's not a metaphor. What is that when it's an old saying? And anyway, you know what I mean. Just take time to stop and enjoy life, and don't get too spun up about everything that's going on out there. But it is what it is. There's always a big thing, says Brian in the chat room, that keeps us in check. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. All right. So what do I want to talk about today? Well, we've got some headlines, and there's an interesting one here that I want to I want to talk a little bit about. There's several different headlines that are good to talk about, but I also want to open up the I also wanted to open up the phone lines to talk about this thing at the ADN where you can submit your questions for candidates. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, and the story is still up and the submission form is still up. So I thought maybe we should finalize it today, and I thought we should open up the phone lines, and because we got a lot of good feedback from the chat room yesterday, but I think we need to get some more input from you, the listeners, to make sure, what it is that, what are the important questions that we should be asking? Should it be 3? Should it be 4 questions? And, we have a set of questions here on the program that we like to ask every candidate, simply because it gives us kind of an idea of where they sit, on the spectrum, on the political spectrum. How would they align with my beliefs? I'm saying the royal hour. How would they align with our beliefs here on the program in certain topics? It's just kind of a yardstick, a metric to be able to judge where a candidate that you may or may not have talked to in the past, where they sit. And of course, those those standard questions, include discussions about education funding, based on this battle that was in the legislature last year. We ask about defined benefits. Where do they stand on defined benefits? We talk about an overall fiscal plan, including protecting the PFD and, the other things that, basically, using the fiscal policy working group, plan as a model. And overall kind of spend in government. And then we've added the question recently about the permanent fund and the push to combine the permanent fund earnings reserve and the permanent fund corpus together as one, which, if you've listened to the program, that I believe that is a push to try and get access to the corpus of the fund. I mean, essentially, it's what it does, is it basically opens up the corpus of the fund to allow people to allow legislators to have access to that heretofore out of reach pot of money. And so those are the kind of questions that we ask here of candidates on the program. And maybe those are good ones. Maybe we can craft around that, or maybe you have a totally different question that you would like to ask. So I would love to hear what you have to say this morning. So we're going to go ahead and just open up the telephones and get started. Get started on this now. The number to call is 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. And we'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Feel free to give us a ring and tell me what your thoughts are. We want to we want to talk with you right now. Just give us a call, 319-527-3864. Just again, feel free to smile and dial and jump in the conversation and give us a shout on this. And maybe by the end of the show, we'll kind of have a consensus of what we can do. And maybe I could put out a Facebook post or something that you could copy and paste or paraphrase or something. And then we could have, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 30 of you submit it to the ADN website. So maybe we can get some of these questions answered, right? I don't know. It's always a possibility. Like to take a look at it. All right. There was a landslide caused tsunami over by Seward. Did I miss that? Did I miss that on the KTU's website this morning? I'll take a look at it. Thank you, Greg. Greg said that there was a 50-foot tsunami caused by a landslide in the thing. Okay, so I'll see if I can find the details on that. It's not. I don't see it just glancing at the KTUU website. KTOO. Oh, I'm sorry, KTOO website, not KTUU. My bad. I'll go over there and take a look at it. Okay. And that's not the right website. Okay. Well, we'll come back to it. So thank you, Greg, for the heads up on that. A couple of stories that I do want to talk about today. I have some questions about the ADN's reporting that Dunleavy vetoed a piece of bipartisan legislation that would have eased access to birth control for women. It would have, I guess eased access maybe is not the right. That's what they say in the headline, but really what it is that it gives them the ability to get a year's worth of birth control instead of 90 days at a time. And, a lot of people were saying that this was important for rural women who were not able to visit a pharmacy every 90 days. And it affects people in different ways, prevent unintended pregnancies and everything else. It was voted on and passed by the Senate in May on a 16-3 vote. David Wilson, Rob Myers, Mike Shower voted against it. Now, I haven't spoken to anybody about why they would vote against it. Dan Sadler is quoted in the newspaper article as having a position about using government force, which I agree with in one way. But I'm curious on this because again, I think that part of the problem that we have with things like prescription drugs and other things, setting aside the fact that this is a, contraceptive, which I know for some people is a no bueno thing, right? I know some people that to them it's a sin, to some people. I think a lot of the problems that we have with our prescription drugs is the fact that it's so heavily regulated by the government. That's what drives the costs up on a lot of this stuff, and the inability to, basically the thing that forces you back into the system, this cyclic loop of trying to get medications that will help you, with where the government forces you to go to the doctor has to kowtow to the government to make sure that they do it right, and then the pharmacy gets their final. I think it drives a lot of the problems with price on drugs and with the restrictions and the difficulty in getting them. I've seen this in my family for years, where somebody's tried to get a specific type of medication, or they're trying to get something fixed, and it's just a whole process. I think government is the problem in a lot of these things. And so anyway, we're going to dive into this. We're out of time for this segment, but we're going to dive into this here in just a minute and come back around to this, because I have questions. This was a bill that was I wasn't paying attention to it. It didn't even hit my radar. It was out there. Again, this just goes to show you that there are many, many things that take place in the legislature that doesn't make the headlines, that we don't really see about until maybe later on, or unless it's something we're super interested in, we don't even really catch that it's happening down there. But we'll continue to talk about this in just a moment. And again, phone lines are open. 319-527-3864. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return to more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, fancy this. He has more options for replying to comments. I think it's so hilarious. Did he endorsed Harris? That's funny. That's some funny stuff. All right. Well, good morning, my friends. How are you this morning? Oh man, I am so low and slow this morning. My brain is not ticking over quite yet at full speed this morning. I had a lot of stuff going on and I just feel like a little fuzzy, right? Like, oh man, but we're getting there. Good morning. We will still be talking about, Frank says we will still be talking about taxes. This is back when I was saying that, the day after the elections, we'll all still be here. And he's 100% right. We will still be talking about taxes. Rick said the lying commercials are sucking. I meant to say sickening, but that works also. I think he's talking about all the ranked choice voting commercials that have been coming out. Again, there's a $4 million push to convince you that you need to keep ranked choice voting because that's the best way ever. Except, of course, now the Democrats are suing to get people off the ballot after the fact. It's so funny. It's just so funny. And that apparently that landslide in Seward was the one back in August that they were talking about back in August. So it was Greg saw an older story that was, but appreciate you sharing it with us, Greg. Thank you. Waiting on coffee. Brian says professionalizing the Permanent Fund Corporation Board instead of politicizing it should be should that be a question? I've got no problem with that. I think it folds into the other question as well. Should it be? They're predicting a major earthquake this week. We'll see what happens. I hate that. Worst earthquake ever was right here where I'm sitting right now. This was I was in this room when that quake in 2018 happened. That was not pretty, man. That was not a pretty sight. It was just after the show. And I've got monitors. There's like 4 monitors in here. And man, it started slow. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a little bit of a shaker. And then it was like, boop, 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 boop. All the monitors were slapping around and then crashing outside the room. And yeah, let's not ask for that again. Okay. Let's not ask for that again. All right. Did everyone get to watch the Hannity Trump Fun Show? No, I don't watch either one of those unless I absolutely have to. All right. That's it right there. Okay. That's it. Brian has fancy new replying options because I have asked Brian to help me moderate the chat room when I'm not paying attention, because there are many times when I get talking about something and I click away from the comments and the screens, and I just want to anyway. Brian is going to help me moderate the chat room a little bit so that we don't get any name calling, kind of thing, demeaning comments. You can argue all you want, just don't get into the name calling, et cetera, et cetera. So, but Brian's going to help me moderate the chat room. I was just going to say, Bill was like, "Did you see Dunleavy's going to veto the entire?" Wait, oh yeah, okay. Thank you, Bill. That comment wins the internet for today. So we're going to I'll put that up there for now, and we'll keep it up there. Let's get back into it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe. Ring the bell. Let's do it.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Well, we were just... The chat room is so much fun sometimes. We got talking about stories and things and some of the... Anyway, and then Bill in the chat room said, "Did you see that Dunleavy's going to veto the entire budget for a full PFD?" Wait, that was in 2018 and it didn't happen. But Pepperidge Farm remembers. Remember those old commercials? But Pepperidge Farm remembers. Yeah, no, I mean, remember that back in the day, back when we thought we were getting a solid, rock solid fiscal conservative, new sheriff in town, take no prisoners governor, who had hired the likes of Donna Ardwin and others to go out there and get the state's fiscal, get us our fiscal train back on the track. Remember that? Remember when we thought it was getting, and then of course the howling and the madness and the dystopian future. If we cut government spending, it would be just this whole. And it was just such a train wreck. Remember that? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Yeah. It was just, it was so, I thought this was going to be the battle that we were setting ourselves up for a real good duking it out. And, of course it didn't happen. And we saw the governor then vacillate. We saw Ben Stevens take over. We saw, as the chief of staff, we saw, Donna Ardwin, who had helped several states get their fiscal house in order and do a good job and everything. We saw her get fired via text message, right? I mean, we saw all this stuff going on, and I gotta say, we had our first bitter taste of disappointment in what the governor was bringing to the state of Alaska. Mike Dunleavy is a super nice guy. Like him a lot. Agreed with all of his policies, I think, for the most part in the first year or so. But then he just, maybe it's one of those things where you're like, well, you'd know if you were in the office and if you had to make those decisions, it's easy for you to say, that you're out, that you on the outside looking in, it's easy for you to say you'd vote a certain way or do a certain thing or whatever, but you just don't know till you strap on my pants and walk in, maybe there's some of that to it. I don't know. I know that I have taken, when I was in elected office, that I took as big a principled stand as I could. I voted no a lot, right? And there were some things that I voted yes on because I found the arguments convincing. But for the most part, it's been a disappointment, right? And it's been a disappointment. So anyway, that whole rant is brought to you by Bill, who was kind enough to remind us that Pepperidge Farm remembers back in the day when it was that kind of stuff. All right, I want to talk a little bit about some of these stories and what's going on, but and including this piece of legislation that was just vetoed by the governor having to do with birth control. But I see that Melody is on the line, and so we will. Well, let me go over here and do that and do that. I'm just pushing some buttons that I should have pushed earlier. Let's go over here and talk to Melody and see what she has to say. Good morning. How are you, Melody?
Good morning, Michael.
How are you? What's on your mind? What's going on this morning?
I'm doing good. I'm calling to ask you, my husband just told me that there is somebody that has joined the U.S. House run here in Alaska that's serving time in Pennsylvania in a federal prison. Do you happen to know who what the name of that candidate is?
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. He's not in Pennsylvania. He's in
I'm sorry, I was.
Yeah, no, he's in New Jersey, and it's Eric Hafner, and he is the fourth candidate now. Actually, he's the third candidate with John Wayne Howe just behind him. He is the third candidate, and he's currently serving a 20-year term in a New Jersey prison right now. Yeah, in New Jersey. And he's actually going to be a big part of the show today because the Democrats, when they've seen that their ranked choice voting is not working out quite the way they wanted, now they're suing trying to have him removed from the ballot with some interesting things. But yeah, welcome to the party,
God.
pal. Right? I mean, what do you think?
I think this is a clown show. That's what I think.
Now, I think that just because, first of all, this is a double-edged sword, right? Because if you say, well, I can't believe we got a felon on the ballot, well, then we've got Trump with the lawfare and everything else, and he's technically a felon as well. I mean, I believe that
that's okay.
Yeah, I believe that
I'll
was
vote
kind of
for that felon.
I believe that was kind of a trumped up thing anyway. But I mean, the fact is that this guy is incarcerated in a jail for the next 20 years, right? And
That's
so,
what
yeah.
I'm like, wait, I'm calling Michael Dukes. He's going to know the name of this guy. I want to find out if this is the true thing or not. Apparently it is. I missed the show yesterday. I was busy having cataract surgery. So unfortunately, I love Wednesdays, but I was indisposed. But today I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun because I love when you open it up for days like this where we can talk back and forth. And congratulations to Brian on his new important position as moderator. Okay, but you answered my questions. Hey, what do you think about Kamala and Putin getting into bed together?
I saw this and I was like, what? And Putin apparently was laughing when he said he endorsed her. So, I mean, I don't think it's but I mean, this is politics today. I mean, Trump says he admires Putin for one thing and he's lambasted. And then Kamala is laughingly endorsed by Putin and they're really not going to say anything about it. And I mean, I think it's going to prove out one thing. It's going to prove out kind of the two-facedness of legacy media, for what they've been doing. They're not going to call it out. I mean, where's the questions for Kamala about how she knew how Joe was doing over the last 4 years, right? Where's the questions for her? Where's the interviews, the one-on-one interviews, the hard-hitting interviews? Where's the podcast that she's going on to answer questions about policy? I mean, there's a lot of things going on here that are just making me scratch my head going like, you all think that she's the greatest thing since sliced white bread, but she's not answering real questions about policy. She's had one interview since she's announced with the help of Tim Waltz.
Yeah, we haven't seen her in 4 years either.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would really be nice if the legacy media would step up to the plate and do what is their job, to be a non-biased, get both sides, ask the hard questions of everyone kind of outlet, right? I mean, that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, not happening. It's just, like I said, it's a clown show. And I'm just waiting to see the end results, and I'm really, really hoping that my vote for the felon will go through, the correct felon, the one that has all the big charges, that is definitely not going to jail for all his white-collar crime. We need him back in as president, for sure.
Well, we're going to see what happens. As I said earlier, obviously, there's one candidate's better than another. There's no doubt about it. But regardless of who wins,
correct.
Remember, Melody, you and I will still be here on November the 3rd or whatever the day after. We'll still be here the day after, and we'll still be fighting it one way or the other. We will live to fight another day. So, all right. Well, thank you, Melody, for calling in. I really appreciate you coming in today and joining us. We will we'll talk to you soon. And by the way, the rain is gone. You can see clearly now. The rain is gone, right? I mean, is it all? It's all bad. It's all good. It's all good.
Actually, I can see quite clearly now. Yes, thank you, Michael, for making me feel better.
You're right. You're right. All right. Well, thank you, Melody, for calling in. I appreciate you being part of it today. All right. Number to call if you want to sound. And I do love phone calls, by the way. Melody was right. There's just something about interacting with somebody, a listener or somebody who has questions or wants to talk about something. I mean, the phone lines are open today. So if I'm talking about something that you want to talk about something different, well, I'm gonna allow it. So give us a shout. 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. All right. So Melody was just talking about Eric Hafner, who is, again, currently serving a 20-year prison sentence in New Jersey for threats, bomb threats, terroristic threats, all kind. We talked about it yesterday. All the things that he was doing. Let me pull up the story from yesterday real quick so that I can remind myself of all the different things. He made threats to numerous individuals located in and around Monmouth County, New Jersey, and elsewhere. The victims were elected officials, judges, police officers, attorneys, and their families. He sought to extort $350,000 from some of his victims. He also made false bomb threats to an elected official's office, a county courthouse, a police department, 2 law firms, and a business. And he was on the run for a couple of years before he was finally incarcerated, and he is now serving. His actual residence is a federal prison. Where he's serving 20 years for making bomb threats and other murder threats, extortion, and bribery. And you know what? Maybe your husband was right, Melody. Maybe the pit prison is in Pennsylvania. I thought, anyway, he's in federal prison. He's from New Jersey, and he's in federal prison somewhere. Maybe it's Pennsylvania, maybe it's New York, maybe it's New Jersey. I don't know where. But the thing is, it's ironic that even the guy should be ineligible. Because even if he wins, it's not like he's going to get out of prison, right? I mean, that doesn't pardon him from it doesn't pardon him like, oh, you're now a senator. Here, let me open the door for you and you can go. And again, he seems like he comes from, he seems like he's got some issues with elected officials, but we'll see where that goes from there. But now, the Alaska Democratic Party is not quite so happy with the fact that this guy's on. They had no problem when he was on the ballot before, but now, because he has been given such high visibility due to the fact that Nancy Dahlstrom dropped out and wasn't Slaughter, was it Sawyer? Who was the other person that dropped the Anyway, 2 people dropped out, and now he has moved up. Matthew Salisbury. The Nancy Dahlstrom and Matthew Salisbury both dropped out after the primary, and so that means that Eric Hafner and AIP candidate John Wayne Howe are now up in the top 4. Well, the Democrats, that was not what they intended. They did not intend to have 2 Democrats on the ballot, especially if, we did. And they're not too pleased with that. Not so pleased, in fact, enough of being not pleased that they have now filed and sued to have Hafner removed from the ballot. But wait till you hear their argument in court. This is hysterical. Absolutely hysterical. We're going to be back with more here in just a moment. Again, phone lines are open. Love talking to you. 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Happy Thursday to you. Back with more after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Okay. Let me go up here. Today, I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling backwards a little bit. Harold said he's been interacting with Chat GPT, had an argument with it about distance equals rate times time. And then Brian said, a friend and I were playing with Chat GPT recently, recasting the Atlas Shrugged with modern business leaders and politicians. That's funny. I had an in-depth conversation with Chat GPT about quantum physics one time. It was interesting to see what it could pull up about causality, and about the observer effect. And it was a fascinating look into all the information that Chat GTP had access to and could pull from. It was really interesting, but if you haven't played around with it, it is interesting. I use for business, I use Google Gemini a lot to help me if I'm not satisfied with something that I've written or I'll send it through Gemini and have it rewrite it for me, and then I'll go back and then it gives me a fresh look at it. But their AI tools are useful for sure. But it's good. Yeah, it's John Wayne Howe, Howe. Okay. Being a felon doesn't make you a bad person. People get felonies for stupid crap under the government we've had for the last 40 years. No, I mean, look, I don't believe that being a felon should disqualify you. Once you've served your time and everything else, again, especially, we've had this conversation about firearms rights and voting rights. I mean, I think once you've served your thing to society, that, your debt should be paid, right? Should all be wiped away. But if you're currently incarcerated and you're trying to run for office, that really seems, that's weird. CNN did ask her about the Joe lie, and she stood by the noble lie that he was as smart as possible, smartest guy in Washington up until the day he decided to do the debate. That was it. Kamala will bring more doom and gloom. I lived through Donna. You're not old enough to live through Jimmy Carter. Kamala will bring more doom and gloom. I lived through Jimmy Carter, kids. I mean, yeah. But yet we're still here. And Donna, Jimmy Carter primed us for Ronald Reagan. It primed the country to bring back somebody who was at least, So the swing always happens. All I'm saying is it wouldn't be pretty. I'm not saying it would be great, but we'll still be here, right? We'll still be here. Let's see. I'm sorry. I'm scrolling through some of the comments here. Otisville, New York, says Brian. Otisville, New York is where the prison is. So there you go. Melody says, don't you have to be a resident of the state to run? No, you have to be willing to become a resident before you're sworn into office. So if you are elected in November, you then have to be a resident of the state before you take the oath of office in January or whenever it is that you are sworn in as a Congress member. We've seen that. Kamala Harris was trying to run for, was it Kamala? Or it was another New York, or it was another California liberal. She was trying to run in Georgia for the Senate in Georgia, even though she didn't live there, had never lived there. And that was it. She just had to reside in that state when she took office. The Fat Ray on YouTube says, we want to split the ticket. No, not like that. Right, exactly. That's the thing. We want to split the ticket, just not on our side. We want you to split the ticket. That's what they want, That's what they want. Are they trying to enact a law saying you can't run for president after 70 years old? No, not that I've seen. There we go. That's it. I'm all caught up. You guys have been busy this morning. Don't forget, now is the time if you want to join us in the conversation here and share some of your infinite wisdom into the I'd love to hear what you guys have to say here coming up in the next segment or in hour 2. It's all open line today. All open line, open forum. Any topic is fair game. You want to talk about ChatGPT? We can do that. You want to talk whatever you want to talk about, I'd love to do it. All right. We got to go. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio, free-thinking, do the things, people. You know what to do. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. Man, the chat room is on a roll today. Those poor people over on Rumble, they're all by themselves this morning. Good morning, people on Rumble. Thank you for coming on board. Eisner Wolf says he has a question for the candidates when we're talking about that ADN candidate form or question, the question thing. He said, my question to candidates is about federal overreach and federal preemption. He says, does the candidate believe when the state accepts federal funds, does the state lose some of its sovereignty? I think that's a great question. But I think I think that's a good question for a long form discussion. We're looking for core questions and not to say the question's bad. I'm not saying the question's bad. I think it's a great question. But what I would be looking for if we're going to try and do this, and I guess, I don't know, are we trying to do this? What do you guys think? Should we? I'm trying to come up with just a couple, 3 questions that we can all together, all me, you, the listenership, the people on Facebook, everybody, that if we all put the same 3 or 4 questions together and submit it on the ADN, that maybe they would be more likely to ask that question. Now, they're probably already going to ask about, education. They're probably going to ask about defined benefits. So maybe we should keep it to 1 question. Maybe it should just be the question about the combining of the permanent fund, because it'll give you a look into the mindset of where that person is. Would they support a raid on the corpus of the fund, essentially? That's kind of the negative spin on it, but that's really truthfully what's going to happen. Not that I don't like Eisner Wolf's question here, but I think that this is a question that is more specialized, and I'm looking for more of a general overall question that can be asked to every candidate to give us a glimpse and an insight into where they stand. So you guys be thinking about that. This morning. And what is the one question? And what would you like to do? I'm hoping that by the end of the show today, we have at least one question that kind of everybody agrees with, maybe two, maybe three, that we can all submit together, so that we all submit the same, basically the same questions to the ADN, and then they look and maybe they see that 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 people kind of ask the same question. Well, maybe we should ask that question, right? Maybe a question that the mainstream media is really not addressing. And I'll be honest, that the question on the permanent fund, on the corpus and the ERA combination thing, that's really not a question that the newspaper seems to be talking about. Harold says, ask the candidates if they'll join a binding caucus. That's not a bad one either. Because, again, most of the legacy media is not talking about how caucuses work. They're not talking about the binding caucus. When you explain to somebody how a binding caucus works, that has never taken a look at it, who's never worked, who has no idea about it, and you explain to them that essentially the day that you show up, you guarantee your vote on a piece of legislation that's not even written yet. That you pledge and swear your fealty, like in the days of yore, you swear fealty to the group and say, I will vote for whatever you put in front of me for the budget, regardless of whether I believe in it or not. And that if you don't swear that fealty, you are denied access to resources, you're put in a closet, your legislation will go nowhere, you are shuffled off to Buffalo, you're shuffled out in the cold, and your constituencies are basically sidelined, disenfranchised. When you explain that to the people, just average, regular Joes, they get so angry. How do I know? Because I've done it, baby. I've done it, and people get upset. They're like, that can't be possible. Like, you're lying. Nope. And then when you explain that in some states it's illegal or unconstitutional, that we're the only state in the whole country that has this binding caucus that they use at the legislative level, and that in some states it's illegal or unconstitutional, and we just blithely follow along with it here. And we got politicians saying, well, you don't understand. It's just not easy to pass this legislation. And it's just so much easier. I mean, even yesterday, Jared Gecker's trying to split the baby on that. Well, if it got us a Republican majority. No! If it got us a Republican majority, no! No! No. Are you saying that the Republicans can't come together and kumbaya enough without having to coerce their fellows into doing what they're told? If you can't pull together a coalition, if you can't pull together a caucus of like-minded conservative Republicans without binding them and forcing them to adhere to whoever the leader is, then that's not a caucus that I want. That is just not a majority that I want at that point, if you've got to force them to do it. So, I mean, there you go. That's it, right? So again, not a bad question. Sorry. My brain's working now. I was a little slow this morning. Now my brain's working. Now I'm like, yeah, no, we'll talk about that. All right. But yeah, so we're looking just for some questions on, how people, how people are going to act. We want those questions. We want questions that show us into the heart of the candidate. That's what I want to know. And quite honestly, the binding caucus question gave me a little more insight into Jared than if I had not asked it, because most of his other answers seem to align with what my beliefs were. But when he kind of hedged on the question about the binding caucus, that raises some flags for me. I mean, he's a nice guy, and I mean, I think he's much better than his opponent in that regard. But it does raise some questions for me as to, he said he said he would be open to discussions, which means he's not vehemently opposed. I, on the other hand, am vehemently opposed to the idea, the concept, the mere concept of a binding caucus. I am vehemently opposed of basically extorting people to be able to represent their constituency. And that's what a binding caucus is. Basically, they're holding the metaphorical gun to your head and saying, if you don't join us and vote the way that we tell you to, the collective we of whoever's in charge of the caucus, right? If you don't do that, then you get nothing. You get no support. You get no staff. You don't get onto committees. You will be sat in the corner with your little dunce cap on for the entirety of this legislative session. If you don't join the majority, you'll be off in the pucker brush. The very concept of that should offend you. It really should. Well, but it's politics. It's just the way things are. No, I don't care if they say that's just the way things are. I don't care if it makes it easier. This is like the argument about, search and seizure and all these other kind of things where the police are out there trying to do things and they're like, oh, but our lives would be so much easier if we had no constitution, if we had no protections or anything else, and you could just demand from us anything at any time, sure would make your job easier, would also make it a police state. Right? Your job would be a lot easier. Their job's a lot easier in a totalitarian dictatorship. How's that working out for the people, though? Well, the binding caucus is just so much easier. It's, you just okay, great. This was made as an intentionally messy process. That's the thing. And you can't support the binding caucus just when it benefits you. Well, if we had the Republicans working on that, then I'd talk about supporting it. No! I don't care who's in charge of the caucus. If you make it binding, you are holding a proverbial gun to people's heads. Whoever they are. I mean, no. Wow, how did we get on this topic? I have this other stuff that I was supposed to talk about. You guys are getting me all over the place this morning. Come out and join us on Facebook or YouTube or Rumble if you want to be part of the conversation during the breaks. And a lot of folks out there this morning hanging out with us. We'll be back with more. Hour 2 is dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Okay. Frank says Gecker likes the binding caucus when it is an advantage to him. Like I said, you can't just do it. You can't just support it when it benefits you. I mean, it makes no sense at all. To me, when we do it that way. Tracer over on Rumble says, with regards to education, accepting federal funds definitely seems to cancel out parental and state rights. It's a big deal in many people's minds, says Tracer. I'm not disagreeing, Tracer. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad question. I'm talking about Snare Wolves' question about whether or not taking federal funds means that you lose some sovereignty. I'm not saying it's a bad question. I'm saying what I think we should be looking for in putting this. And you can go submit. Let me drop the link in the chat room so you guys can all go take a look at this. And if you want to put your own questions in, feel free to do so. Right? There's the link to the ADN story where you can go. Put your own questions in. I'm just saying that if we had a concerted, organized effort to put in the same questions so that it has a higher probability of being asked or being put on the question list, I would think it would be a question about the fundamentals about who the candidate is, something that uncovers who they are. And the binding caucus question is not a bad question. It really isn't. I mean, I think that goes to the heart of where somebody is. Do you believe it's okay to extort someone's vote? Now, you might scream at the radio and say, that's a negative spin on but is it not? Is it untrue? Is it untrue? Also, the question about the permanent fund. I mean, because then you look into their hearts and you could see, well, they're either for or they're against accessing the corpus of the fund. That's what that question tells them. Shelley, is it weird? Is it weird that I heard this in Rod Serling's voice? So picture, if you will, the borough mayor race, and our conservative candidates is the one and only binding caucus king, John Coghill. I find myself over a barrel here, going to have to vote for him. Geesh, the alternate universe stuff continues. Spoke with him briefly at the ITA candidate forum the other night and told him who I was and that I campaigned against him for Rob Myers. This is his chance to redeem his conservative self tonight on the Twilight Zone. He was the binding caucus king. He was definitely one that wanted everybody to march to his drum. There is it. What Jeffrey says, remember when we had war correspondents? What news is truly coming out from there? I mean, yeah, I remember that. I mean, I remember that as well. Okay. I'm still scrolling through. Which Republican legislators joined the caucus in 2023-2024? Asked Terrell. In the Senate, Terrell, every Republican, with the exception of Showers, Hughes, and Myers, joined the binding caucus. That was a binding bipartisan caucus. And there was no binding caucus in the House this last year. So the only binding caucus was the one that was in the Senate. So there you go. Confucius issues state like helter skelter, evil, caliphate, demonic women. I don't even know what you're saying here, Henry. There's a lot of word salad going on there, Henry, and I'm not even sure what you're talking about, quite honestly. All right, I'm just going through here. Most elections are personally driven, not policy driven. It's like electing the homecoming queen, king, or other. That's true. That's 100% true. There's a lot of times where the personality plays through more than the policies. Bill Clinton is a prime example of that for 100% for sure. David also said that when we were talking about the funds going to the education and people were worried about loss of state sovereignty, David does point out, and he's our education, he's the advocate that he's into the education thing. That's his bailiwick. Most federal funds for K through 12 ed are for the school lunch, breakfast, supper program, not much to do with educating our kids. But there are still other, for the most part, he's right. The biggest chunk goes to that. But we also know that there is some other monies that slip in there as well, David. We know that it's, we know that that's going on there as well. The end times, says Henry. That's what it's about. The end times. Your state is being invaded, bro. Okay. Well, I read the book. I know we win. That's the plus, right? We should take care of our families and our communities and do the best we can here and pay attention to that. All right, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Here we go.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this yo favorite radio station and or FM translator. That's the FM translator for those of you who need to know. Good morning and welcome to the broadcast. It is the Thursday edition, and we are ready to go. It's open line, open forum today. We've been talking about a variety. We've been all over the place. I mean, come on. My ADD must have kicked in at some point because I'm like squirrel. We're talking about all kinds of different things. But let me give you the rundown of what I'd like to focus on for this hour. But again, your calls reign supreme. So if we end up wandering off in the pucker brush on something else, we can do that as well. We'll take your calls. 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864 if you want to call in and talk with us. But here's what I was wanting to focus on. Yesterday, we talked about there's an ADN article asking you, the readers, and you, the listeners, what would you like to ask candidates for the U.S. House and the Alaska Legislature? What's important to you in the 2024 election? And it's a little blurb from David Holland that says, as part of our coverage, we'll be asking candidates for House and State House and Senate a set of detailed issue questions. We'll publish their answers online in print. Now, the Alaska Beacon has already done this. They came up with their own questions, but the ADN is basically soliciting questions from their listener base. And you can go out there and submit it. And my thought was, well, what if we all got together, and what if we all, the listeners of this show, got together and came up with a couple, I don't think maybe any, I think more than 3 is too much, but maybe, 2 or 3 questions that we think are the most insightful, important questions to ask the candidates. Something that gives us a peek into who they are, right? Not just a policy question, but they're asking for policy question or issue questions, but not just a question that deals with the issue, but a question that asks about an issue that gives you insight into who they are. Now, the 2 questions so far that I think kind of hit that mark for me that we've heard today and yesterday, the 2 questions that I think are, 1, do you support a binding caucus or would you join a binding caucus? I think that's a good question. I think it's also a little more, not pedantic, but it's a little more in the weeds than most people would be. Most people don't understand what a binding caucus is, right? So, but the other question would also then be, do you support the proposal from the Permanent Fund Corporation and people like Bert Stedman to combine the earnings reserve and the corpus of the fund through a constitutional amendment. Because that will not only give you an answer to that issue, it will give you insight into whether or not they understand the importance of protecting the corpus of the permanent fund and not accessing it. Right? So those are the two questions that I've kind of come up with so far. But maybe you guys have got another question that you think is better than those two as far as getting insight into who these people are. So there you go. So that's part of what we wanted to do today. We've also been talking about the fact that, as we mentioned yesterday, the number 3 candidate now on the ballot for the U.S. House of Representatives is a felon currently incarcerated in Otisville, New York, on a 20-year sentence for basically bomb threats, murder threats, terroristic threats, whatever it is. And he's on the ballot, which I found educational, if nothing else. This is a guy, by the way, they never would have made it to in the old style voting system. He never would have made it to the ballot because he got less than half of 1% of the overall vote. John Wayne Howe, who is number 4 now, who's the Alaska Independence candidate, also got less than 1/2% of the vote. And so, these are candidates that would have never made it onto the ballot, the general ballot, in a regular election scenario. But because we're under ranked choice voting, this is where we're at. So anyway, the thing was, remember, these guys, the Democrats, they're all about ranked choice voting, right? They're all about ranked choice voting and how it gives the middle a better chance. It gives those people who are they have a better chance of then getting the candidate that they want. And they obviously understand how ranked choice voting works. James Brooks reported back a couple weeks ago, a week and a half ago, back in August, he reported on the fact that Nick Moe, who is a progressive, he's not a Democrat, but he was a nonpartisan progressive running for the House district in West Anchorage, ended his campaign on Monday because he said, he was behind the Democratic candidate Carolyn Hall. He said, and Moe was quoted as saying, we're going to probably raise another $70,000 in this race fighting against each other. So I think to use those resources and energy and time to elect other good people is a smart decision. So he stepped out of that race, leaving her unopposed for the seat. Because why fight it out? We know what's going to happen. But wait, isn't that what? And Savannah Fletcher, up in Fairbanks, up in the race for House District 36 up there. There was a Democratic candidate there that bowed out of the race. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but there was an article where he essentially said the same thing. Oh, I don't want to fight. We agree on more than we disagree on, so I think it'd be better to just leave the field open for her. And that happened back in. Well, that happened a couple months ago, right? That happened before they were able to withdraw. Before he withdrew, he wasn't even on the ballot, I don't think. So they understand how that works, where you're running two candidates of a similar ilk against each other, who have similar philosophies against each other. They understand that completely. But now that they've seen that this Eric Hafner guy is made it to the top 4. Oh, that just won't. They are steaming mad, according to Suzanne Downing. They are now suing, the Alaska Democratic Party is now suing the Division of Elections to get him off the ballot so that Mary Peltola can win. This whole ranked choice voting system was designed Again, ranked choice voting on paper works great. The problem is that when you put real people in there with real personal philosophies, that's where the whole thing falls. It's like communism is great on paper until you add the human element and you realize that human greed gets in there, and it's a whole, it's a whole thing, right? The ranked choice voting works perfect on paper until you put people into it, and then you realize that it's meant to split up the conservative vote. That's really what it does. It splits the donations and time, the momentum of conservatives, and that's what it does. So the lawsuit put forward by the Democrats says, quote, I'm quoting now from the lawsuit, Congresswoman Mary Peltola won the August 20 primary with a clear majority of the votes cast. The next three highest vote getters were all Republicans, but as an apparent result of a last-minute machinations at the expense of Alaska voters, two of those three candidates dropped out, and the Division of Elections certified late Monday that they intended to place the fifth and sixth place finishers on the general election ballot in their place. They're so salty about this that it was last minute machination. When they do it, it's just good common sense. But when when this happened last time, remember, was it Tara Sweeney? Who was one of them dropped out and the next one moved? I mean, that they didn't object to that. They go on to say, Alaska law does not provide for the inclusion of the sixth place primary finisher on the general ballot under any circumstances. Well, but it does, because everybody moves up if the candidate drops out. It did not allow for such inclusion. Mr. Hafner would need to be replaced by the seventh place finisher. Mr. Hafner is disqualified from representing in Congress for two reasons. First, because he is not and cannot become an inhabitant of Alaska. And second, because he failed to list his full residence on the residency form. I mean, they may get him off the ballot, but I just think it's interesting that they basically go back to that this was all last-minute machination at the expense of Alaskan voters. This idea that candidates are, it took us one cycle, right, to figure it out. We go back to the postmortem. And Nick Begich was really on the forefront of this when he said, if I don't win, I'm dropping out. If I don't win the primary, I'm dropping out of the general because I won't be part of what happened last time. Because we saw what happened last time. There was plenty, because Republicans do what Republicans always do in these when they have at-large races. I've seen this in Fairbanks on the assembly races year after year after year. You got one seat. There's four candidates, three conservatives and one progressive. And what happens? Well, the conservative candidates beat the hell out of each other for, 90 days. And then nobody limps across the finish line, and the progressive gets voted in because they spent all that time, because the progressives are smart enough to only put one candidate in the seat. So Republicans do what they've always done in the first go-round. But see, now they figured it out. Okay, well, if I do not have a clear path to victory, if I only got 5% and all the other the top two candidates have got 30%, and there is just no viable way for me to have a path forward, I'm pulling the plug. It's not some party machinations. It's good common strategic sense. But see, they want to make it about the party. They want it to be like, oh, they're disenfranchising Alaskans by. You want to know who's disenfranchising? Well, I didn't, blah, blah, blah. Our information and belief. This is a continuing quote. Our information and belief with the withdrawals of Lieutenant Governor Dahlstrom and Mr. Salisbury were orchestrated by the Alaska Republican Party in an effort to ensure that only one Republican candidate appears on the general ballot. Well, you can believe that all you want. And here's the thing. Even if it was true, there's no law against a party coordinating their candidates. There's no law saying you couldn't do that. And Suzanne Downing points out that, remember, That's how, remember Al Gross was on the ballot back in 2022, and all of a sudden, one day he just mysteriously disappeared. Remember that? I mean, it was literally like one day here, next day gone. Al Gross off the ballot. Are you telling me that was not orchestrated by the Democratic Party? Oh, this was orchestrated by the Alaska Republican Party. Like, you guys don't orchestrate a ton of stuff anyway. Then you look at all the attorneys who are part of this. And Suzanne Downing goes through the whole thing where she goes through all these attorneys. These are people who work on ballot access issues. One of the main law firm was a key player in the Russia hoax. One of the guys was the guy who paid for the Steele dossier when he was at Perkins Coie. Some of the biggest lawfare attorneys in the nation. These are the people who are fighting this out there. Look, they may get this guy off the ballot because obviously he couldn't serve. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. If you're in prison for a 20-year sentence, you ain't getting out because you got elected somewhere, right? So he obviously can't serve. But just the verbiage on this, and the fact that I can go back to at least 2 news stories in just the last month where Democrats or progressives that have gotten off the ballot saying that they don't want to split the vote, essentially. And they had no problem with that when it was their candidate benefiting. They had no problem when Al Gross got kicked to the curb. It is just the height of hypocrisy. The pinnacle. All right. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show continues. Phone lines are open, 319-527-3864. We will return in a moment. Don't go anywhere. Back with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. I want to know, says Tracer over on Rumble, if they support the WHO's policies, especially as they affect the right to life or lack thereof, as the WHO believes, for preborn citizens. I mean, it's a good question. I'm not saying it's not a good question. But again, and don't take this the wrong way, I'm looking for a question that gives us insight. Well, that does give us insight. It does give us insight into their overall character, because whether or not they believe that life is, I guess, precious and begins at conception. But I guess in what I'm looking for is that answer in terms of more of an overall kind of look, Brian says, I would suggest the binding caucus question could begin with, considering most states consider a binding caucus to be illegal and arguably immoral. If elected, would you join a binding caucus promising your vote to a specific yet unwritten piece of legislation? Oh, God. Boom. Mic drop right there. Mic drop from Brian. Boom. Brian, would you message that to me? I'm going to message that to me. I'm going to go ahead and include that I'm going to put together a Facebook post later today where we go through and look at, they just, because that's it right there. That is the phrasing on that question. I guarantee it right there. That is the phrasing. Yeah, Tawny said, in fact, they applauded Tara Sweeney for getting out. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Let's see. going through here. Why are you always attacking the one conservative David Eastman and not Bert? I attack Bert all the time. Do you actually listen to what we talk about on this show, Henry? I'm just asking. I attack everyone. That's not true. I haven't attacked Mike Shower, although we did have an argument last week on air. But Bert is not a conservative. Never has been. Most of the Republicans in the Senate are not conservatives. I don't think David Eastman is the one conservative. I'm not even sure that you're actually listening to what we're talking about, quite honestly, sometimes. Remember the guy that ran against Charles Vickers? Yeah, I remember that. How dare you use our strategy to beat us, says Ron. That's exactly it right there. There we go. Who has shown the body autonomy is null and void, so jabs are mandatory, yada, yada, yada. There's a radio commercial playing right now, says Jim, on KFAR in Fairbanks. How ranked choice voting would have enabled Ted Stevens to win his Senate seat and Tony Knowles to lose his governor's race. So Republicans should love ranked choice. How would they even know at that point? Right? I mean, there's a lot of horse malarkey being shoveled around and those kind of things. I mean, yeah. How would you even be able to prove that? How would you even be able to prove that right there? That's a question. Yeah. Doesn't make any sense. No. All right. We're 20 seconds out. We're going to continue. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share on this edition of NPR. Like and share, follow, subscribe, ring the bell. Let's do it. Let's go. All right, I'm a little ahead of time here. I have to admit, I'm just slightly ahead of time. That's what happens sometimes. Let's do it now.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Harold in the chat room just said, ask ChatGPT for a long-term Alaska fiscal plan, and it laughed. Which is probably about what it would, really, in real life, that's probably about what it would do. It would go, I don't understand the question, Dave. Right? I mean, have we even... would they even know a fiscal plan if it bit them right on the face? I mean, here's the real answer. Here is the real answer. They don't want a fiscal plan. Now, not everybody. Obviously, Ben Carpenter. There are people in there who are, there are people out there who want to. But the majority of the legislature is not interested in a fiscal plan. Why? Because they're like a teenager with a credit card. They don't want to be told that there's a limit. They don't want to be told that they can't spend money on their favorite programs. They don't want structure. They don't want strictures. They don't want any kind of regulations on how they do the things. They know better than you how that money should be spent. And they don't want anything impeding their dream of how things should be done. And if we don't have a fiscal plan, then they don't have to adhere to one. they can just continue to make it up as they go along. That's what they can continue to do. They just make it up as they go along. And they like it that way. Because then they can spend as much as they right up to the, Bert Stedman, the walrus. We've got $200 million that we could spend for the $200 million surplus. Which, by the way, you notice that they never talk about the supplemental budget. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, how it works is they pass a budget for the upcoming year. Right? They pass it in May, usually April or May. And then the fiscal year starts in July. And then the year runs. And then at the end of the year, the beginning of the next session, they come back and say, oh, now we have a supplemental budget for the previous fiscal year to true up what we spent because we actually spent more. I mean, they spend more than what they actually budgeted. Right? They spend more than what they actually budgeted. And so they come back and said, well, we need another, 50, 90, 100, 200. One year was $276 million, $250 million in supplemental spending. Sometimes it's for things like forest fires that were unforeseen and things like that. But a lot of times it's just flat out overspending. So they always tell us about, we got a balanced budget with a surplus. And then they're like, but what about the supplemental? Pay no attention to the supplemental. They don't want a fiscal plan. They want to be able to spend however they want to spend. They want to take dollars from everywhere that they can take dollars from. And that's why they've whittled the PFD down to the size that it is right now. Brian says, as a project manager, I'd get lambasted for overrunning my budget. Well, you'd get more than lambasted if you kept doing it. You'd get fired, right? Nobody wants to hire a project manager who can't stay on budget or come in under budget. You probably get bonuses for getting the job done and coming in under budget. That's the thing. Nobody wants a fiscal plan. Well, again, there are people that want it, but the majority are just like, nope, don't need a fiscal plan because then we can just make it up in the chaos as we go along and spend whatever we want. Randy's on the line from Fairbanks. This should be fun. Let's go over and see what Randy has to say. Good morning, sir. What's on your mind?
Hi there, Michael. As you know, of course, Brad Keithley always says that a cut in the PFD is a tax. So, and that I'd like to see on the ADN, the Anchorage Daily News, is what is your definition of a true government tax? And does that definition conflict or agree with two other statements? One, a cut in the PFD is a tax, and two, inflation is a hidden tax. And to see if those are really valid statements, a person first has to start out with, well, what is the definition of a tax? So I'd like to see that question.
I guess my question to you is, Randy, does it matter what the actual Webster's dictionary definition of a tax is, or is it the effect? That is the question. I mean, Matt Berman, you and I have had this conversation before, and you apparently don't care. Matt Berman, who's a professor of economics who deals specifically with taxation issues at the University of Alaska Anchorage, has said on multiple occasions, including in his latest article in the ADN here from a few months back, said that the taking of the PFD is a tax. In effect, it is a tax. Now, whether it's technically the textbook definition of a tax, the effect of it is a tax. Does that matter to you, or are you looking for just speaking of pedantic, are you looking for you're looking for something that's the actual tax? You're taking exception with the fact that we're calling it a tax, even though technically it's not a tax. Is that where you're taking the exception here, or does the effect matter to you?
Well, the actual definition matters to me, and I'm glad that you mentioned Matt Berman, because I would love to know what his definition of a true government tax is.
Here's the thing. I mean, you're getting, I guess my question to you is, you're getting hung up in whether the we call it a tax, but does the effect, does it really matter? It's like saying Kleenex or facial tissue. Okay. Kleenex is a name brand, facial tissue is the object, but does it matter? I just want something to wipe my nose with. It's what is the effect of it? You're getting up in arms about the fact that we're calling it a tax, but do you agree that it has the effect of a tax, even though technically it's not? Do you agree that it has the effect of a tax?
Well, in some cases you could say it has the effect of a tax, but the implications is very important. And by the way, Kleenex is a facial tissue. I will agree with that. But the cut in the PFD is not a tax because it conflicts with my definition of a tax. And since few people offer their own definition, I will give you my definition. And my definition is money that is individually owned by a person that is taken from that person by the government so as to finance government operations and services. That's my definition. And therefore, if that's the true definition, which I think it is, cut in the PFD is not a tax. And it's okay to say it has the effect of a tax as long as you qualify it.
Well, the thing is that money is individually owned. It's each individual share of the royalty. Now, you disagree with that. You say because it's collectively in a bucket before it comes to us, that it's not an individual, but that's what it's laid out as. And that's what Hammond talked about. It's your individual share of the royalty, regardless of whether it's in a big bucket that's being held by the government, it's their individual share. So the fact that the government takes it before dispersing the remainder of their individual share out matches your definition of a tax.
Well, you've gotten right to the heart of the matter. You admit that it's collectively owned and not individually owned, and that's the same thing.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
That's important to know.
Yeah, it's not what I said. I said it is the individual share of the wealth. That's what the dividend is. The dividend is the individual share of the wealth. You're saying that the individual component is an important part of what makes it a tax. And that is the point. And that's what Hammond said. That's what, when they put it together, the whole point of the permanent fund dividend was to give each individual their share of the royalty wealth. So it is even though it's being held in a single bucket by the government, those are all individual shares of the wealth. That's like saying all my money is in a money market account, and because they have it, it's their money. No, it's my money in the money market account. If they disperse it to me. It's my they may be holding it collectively. They may have 5,000 other people's money in that account, but that does not make it collectively their money. It means it is their individual monies. So by your definition, it's a tax.
Well, in the situation of the money market, and as far as what portion of the holdings of the money market is my money, that is defined by contribution and is also quid pro quo function, because I bought into the money market and by contract, a certain amount of it is due me. But that's not the case with the money that is in the Alaska Permanent Fund. But the dividend that is written out on the check that is then given to me, yes, that is individually owned. But whatever was not written into that check is not individually owned. That money may
that's
be
incorrect.
Used for services.
That's incorrect, Randy. You're wrong. You're 100% wrong. It's according to law, that is your individual share of the money. And whether you put money in a money market account, or whether you had some kind of investments that was spinning off money into your investment accounts, it's your money. You can't spin it any other way, Randy. You're flat wrong. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but you're flat wrong. And again, you get down into the weeds on all these definitions, but the bottom line is the money is held collectively. You're 100% right. just like in a money market or an IRA or a Roth or any other kind of investment where the money is put into a bulk fund, it's held collectively. That does not give the government ownership of it. Remember, this was a shell transfer thing for years. That's what it was. You're wrong. End of story. This is not, we have two truths. This is, you're wrong. I'm right. That's just how it is. Sorry. I'll die on that hill. I will die on that hill. I see Bill is on the line. Bill, you're going to have to hold on just a second because I am up against the break and I have got to go here. So we're going to take off. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We'll return with Bill's phone call in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. If you think Randy's right, call me up. Tell me how I'm wrong and explain it to me. Talk to me like I'm 5. We'll be back. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, let me go over to Bill real quick and just touch base with him real quick. You still with me, sir?
Yes, I am, Mike. What I have to discuss, though, is going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I just want to let you know I'm going to hold you over, and we'll come right back to you as soon as we get back on.
Okay.
We'll have about 10 minutes, so hold the line here. Don't go anywhere. I'll put you back on hold. You will be first up in the queue here. Let me go back to the comments because, God. It says, I enjoy Michael doing the pretend walrus mustache over his giant mustache. Donna says, there should never be a supplemental state budget except for natural disasters. And yet year after year, there's always something, right? I mean, some years it's a few $1 million and some year it's $200 million. It's, it's, every time the government spends is from the tax on the people, says Harold. That's great. Donna says, she quotes Milton Friedman, the true government tax is how much the government spends. Also, I believe a truth. Brian asks, would fee be a preferable word instead of tax? Surcharge, duty, tribute, capitulation? Oh. A tax is not a tax unless it's labeled a tax. Like Social Security isn't a tax by definition, but it's treated in the end as taxed. Yes. It's your money being taken away. Donna says, Alaskans pay over $16,000 a year in taxes. Wrap your head around that, Randy. PFD cuts are only the beginning of the amount that y'all are taxed. Y'all. That's not something I would expect to come out of Donna Arduin's mouth. Y'all. Michael, I need the Dr. Cox wrong soundboard. Huh. You are wrong. I want to do Willy Wonka. You are wrong. Our money is being used to fund the invasion. Okay, Henry. Tawny says she's with me. Talk to me in small words. Yes, Brian. In small words. Okay. This is not the real Bill. This is not Bill Brapp. Okay. Oh my God, Randy, you're stuck on this whole true government tax thing. Whether it is true by definition or has the effect, it doesn't matter. It's the effect that counts. Not going to talk to you about it anymore because the thing is that it's taking us, it's taken from you. It's taken from you. And you just can't wrap your brain around that. And that, I mean, you used to argue that we should just give the legislature all the money they want and eventually they'll find fiscal discipline based on that. It's never going to happen. Not in the history of the world has it happened. Come on, Randy. You're smarter than this. You really are. Audio can be found on that YouTube link, says Fat Ray. For the soundboard? Oh, I didn't see a YouTube link. But I'm not looking on YouTube. So I guess I'll have to go back and take a look at it. Fat Ray. Thank you. I mean, Randy can argue in the chat room all he wants. You know, we don't mute or kick people for arguing. Brian's here to make sure that nobody gets to name calling and other things, right? That's the whole point. I mean, I think I've only ever banned one person, maybe two people from the show in 5 or 6 years. So it's, you know, but it's because it was either untoward behavior or, you know, like unrepentant cursing all over the place or something like that. So it is. Fat Ray says, I can't see anything, because Fat Ray's on YouTube. Fat Ray says, I can't see anything Randy is saying, but it's amusing from here. Oh, man. Uh-oh. What did Big John just sent me an email or text message. The Alaska study industry always asks, what would Randy do when analyzing projects? Then we do the opposite. I love Randy for his passion, man. The guy's passionate about a lot of stuff, but he's passionately wrong about this one. Just because if we can't agree on the fact that money is, again, your individual right, then nothing can come of it. Okay, we're continuing on now. We got one line on hold. Bill is calling in, and he said he's got something he wanted to talk about. So let's go over to him first things first, see what he has to say. Good morning, Bill. What's on your mind?
Yes, I'm calling, by the way, from the rail belt in the area kind of halfway between Fairbanks and Nenana. Okay, what's going on here is that the Parks Highway is basically in a state of crumbling. You know, not everywhere because it's been resurfaced and rebuilt and so on in different places. However, in a stretch of highway right along where I live, it's crumbling. Okay, that there are all kinds of different cracks and potholes and so on in the highway, and the aggregate from the highway is if it's not going into people's windshield, then it goes into the paved shoulder, on the other. Okay, and so as a cyclist, what happens is that the DOT is basically forcing me to go into the path of people that are driving semi-tractor or trailer rigs, the tour buses, and the general pickups and passenger cars. Okay, and so the way I handle this is I try as much as possible to stick to about 1 foot of pavement on the other side of the fog line. And people, by and large, have been very, very observant, I guess, and understand what the problem is. It's like about one out of maybe 50 or 100 people will lay into the horn because they don't have any idea what's going on. Whereas the truckers and tour bus drivers and so on, they just carefully go by me. Okay.
Okay.
But, my question is, and also I should say that there have been holes right in the center of the main traveled lane, which is where motorcyclists ride, and the holes are sometimes going to about 4 inches deep because they've been let go for so long that not only is the pavement, which is about 2 inches thick, broken out, but the D1 or the substrate there is also being broken out. So
right.
In the case of a motorcycle, it's
it's a danger.
Like,
I think we can all
injury or a fatality type accident.
Yeah, no.
If they happen to drop into one of these.
Bill, I think we can all agree that there are many roads, including major highways in Alaska, that are in some ways no better than goat trails. Right? I mean, we understand, totally see where you're coming from there. What's your suggestion?
Yeah, but here's the idiocy of it. We're taking 3/4 of people's PFD away so that we could have this, it's high neglect of the basic remedial processes that would extend the life of the highway.
So,
there are cracks. I've seen them, developing for 14 years because that's how long I've been living out here, right? They started out very, very small, and the DOT doesn't put any sealant down in those cracks, and so they just continue to gradually expand. And then when the rainwater and so on has gotten in underneath and helped undermine the pavement and so on,
right.
Then it starts breaking out in bigger and bigger pieces. And then you get these 2 foot wide, 4 feet long type potholes.
So I think, or what are we talking about here?
By and by, the DOT will come and repair them, the big potholes, but they won't repair the cracks.
Right. Well, what we're talking, I mean,
right next
Bill,
to the place they repaired, the next pothole develops.
Right. Bill, I think, what we're talking about here is I think, in my opinion, a prioritization problem, right? I mean, if we want the roads to be, we want the road,
because around the core area of Fairbanks, they're doing these kind of like exotic intersection remodels.
Right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
The round.
You probably got them going on in Anchorage.
Yeah, the roundabouts and the thing in front of the gate and all that. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree with you, Bill. I mean, we should be maintaining what we have instead of then having to rebuild it every 10 years because we let it go to waste because we didn't take care of it.
That's right.
No, I mean, I agree with you.
You got it. And the thing is I think it's high time to have a very thorough audit of DOT, how many people they have, what all the jobs are, how much these people are getting paid, and what kind of condition the state highways are in.
Right.
Relative to what is being spent.
Right. No, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you, Bill. I think it's a good idea that we should probably look at it, and those things should be especially the high traffic roads like the Parks Highway. I mean, but I agree with you. I think that those things need to be taken care of, and if we took care of them now, there would be less rebuilding required. If we paid the maintenance now, it's like we don't let the roof go until it's absolutely leaking everywhere. We maintain it the whole time and then only replace it when we can't maintain it anymore, instead of just letting it go until you get huge holes and then you have to replace it. It's a basic maintenance. It's something that should be prioritized. I agree. Final thoughts, Bill.
Well, Yes. What's really disturbing to me is that it shows a callous regard for the lives and property of the rest of the citizens. In other words, well, if you get a rock in your windshield, that's too bad.
Yeah.
If you get killed, that's too bad. We don't care. As far as I know, the state has basically immunized DOT so they can't be sued. I could be wrong on that, but
Right.
I think it's one of those deals. I think the federal government does this, where you can only sue an agency if the agency agrees to be sued.
Right. Well, I agree. Look, Bill,
So
I agree with you.
incentive.
All right, Bill, you're talking too much. I agree with you. We should be looking at it. We should be diving into it. It should be a priority. And Angie from Representative McCabe's office just messaged and said, Rep. McCabe will have driven that road last night, and today he's up in Fairbanks for a bill signing. I just sent an inquiry to DOT. Thanks for letting us know. So she's going to send an inquiry to DOT, and maybe that's how we get it done. Bill, thank you for your call. I appreciate it. It was a good description of what's good. We know. I mean, is it surprising that we spend billions of dollars in this state and yet can't even get good roads? I saw Greg said something about Ketchamack Drive in Homer. You want to know a road that's like driving on the surface of the moon. Oof. But yeah, major highways with big old potholes right in the middle of them. Yeah. It's horrific. It just shows that we're going to spend millions of dollars on the long trail for people to walk from one area to the other, but we can't keep up our own highways it's frustrating to say the least. Absolutely. That's what they do. And then of course, if they don't get the money that they want, they'll say, well, we can't patch the highways. It'll be worse than it is now. Oh my Lord. All right. I guess that's it. I guess we're up. What else did I had something else I wanted to talk? Oh, we never did get to finish talking about the veto of the birth control bill. I wanted somebody to tell me why they thought that was a good idea, because I'm a little torn on that. I agree with Dan Sadler saying that the government doesn't necessarily need to be involved, but at the same time, I think government needs to get out of the way. We should be able to get access to 12 months worth of a medication if we're going to be on it for the long term. I mean, why not? Why, so much government intervention in everything that we do. And people are just like, well, it's just the way it is. We're used to that by now. Why? Why are you used to it? Stop getting used to it. Be ungovernable. Get them out of everything. Get them out of your business. That's what you need to do. Get them out of your business. All right. Well, that actually does it for today. We got to go. Tomorrow is Firearms Friday. I am super excited. Working on a guest. I'm hoping to have Dr. John Lott on tomorrow, but we'll see. Last time he got scarpered by another show, so we'll see if that works out. Anyway, in the meanwhile, I hope you have a great day. Enjoy the final days of summer/fall. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. All right. Government shouldn't add more mandates for private insurance, says Donna. And again, Donna, I'm the first to admit that I'm not really fully cognizant of what this bill entails. But I think people should be allowed to get 12 months worth of, I'm not saying it should be mandated, like you will immediately give them 12 months, but it should be allowed. That's what I'm saying. Now, maybe that's not what the legislation said, because like I said, I'm not paying attention to it at all. But I don't know. It was an interesting when they got when it came out and this got vetoed. I was like, that's the problem is the government is involved in every aspect of our medical needs, our healthcare. They're involved in so many different aspects that just get them out of it. Get them out of it. We can make our own decisions on that. That's what we need to do. All right. We got to go. What was that? Interesting firearms stories for tomorrow. Concealed carry in Illinois. We'll talk about all that tomorrow. That'll be a good conversation for tomorrow. All right, my friend, folks, thank you so much for coming on board and for being part of it today. We appreciate it. I am going to. I gotta go. I gotta go. We will see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming in. Yes, you're helping with show prep, Ryan. His position is expanding from moderator to show prep helper. All right, we got to go. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
Bye.